It's week 46 of 2021. I'm Smita Nair. This is your weekly fix. Imagine you're out on the street, headed to work or college or to a friend's house, and the police flag down your vehicle or intercept you on the sidewalk for no apparent reason. They ask you to produce your mobile phone and then proceed to check your text and WhatsApp conversations. Maybe even take your photograph, fingerprint you. Well, this isn't some fictionalized dystopia. It is happening in Hyderabad. You may have likely come across video clips from that city circulating on social media where cops can be seen doing pretty much what I described above. Police officials have been quoted as saying this was being done to crack down on peddling of narcotics and that they were checking mobile phones to look for words like ganja. Well, now, some of you may argue that what I'm saying is a bit of a reach, but really, tomorrow, what stops them from checking your personal conversations to see what your uncensored political views are? In fact, independent researcher Srinivas Kodali tweeted as much, saying, "The police are searching phone chats for words like ganja. Wait until they replace the words with NRC, Modi, or BJP." I would add to that saying it could be any political party in power. We can all agree, can't we, that privacy is an essential prerequisite to the exercise of individual freedom. Well, there is more happening in Hyderabad on that front that is an immediate cause for concern. It involves an extensive CCTV network, an estimated 600,000 cameras in conjunction with extensive use of facial recognition technology, and an upcoming command and control center which reportedly will allow the processing of real time data. Amnesty International has said Hyderabad is one of the most surveilled cities in the world. Amnesty, along with the Internet Freedom Foundation and Article 19, have called for a ban on the use of facial recognition technology, warning that the construction of this command and control center in Hyderabad will have chilling consequences for the right to freedom of expression and assembly. Anushka Jain, Associate Counsel for Surveillance and Transparency at the Internet Freedom Foundation, will join us in a moment to help us understand this better. I'll also be asking her about the experience of the use of this kind of technology in other democracies. The American experience, for one, has shown that facial recognition technology can be wildly inaccurate. Following protests in that country, three of the biggest names in facial recognition technology, Amazon, Microsoft, and IBM, had announced that they'd halt the sale of such software to police departments and had called for federal regulation of the technology. The UN Human Rights Chief called for AI applications that cannot be used in compliance with human rights law to be banned. Meanwhile, China is deploying digital surveillance for monitoring citizens' behavior, with each person being given a social credit score. Let's welcome Anushka Jain. Anushka, thanks for making the time.
Thank you for having me.
In recent times, we've seen the Hyderabad police randomly stopping people on the streets and reading their WhatsApp chats. In some cases, the stop and search ends with the police photographing the civilian without any charge and even recording their fingerprints, as has been the case in the city police's infamous Operation Chabutra. Is this legal?
This is definitely not legal. Um, for the police to randomly stop people and ask them to produce their phones and to read their WhatsApp chats is an invasion of their privacy. The right to privacy is fundamental and is included under Article 21, which talks about right to life and liberty. There is no provision either in state law, that is for the state of Telangana, or in India, which would allow the police to do such things. There is no provision which says that the police can ask for phones and read WhatsApp chats without any reason to do so. Randomly stopping people on this road and asking them to produce their WhatsApp chats is patently problematic and definitely not legal.
Okay.
And everybody who works in civil society and who's been following the news that is coming out of Hyderabad is extremely worried about what we're seeing, because we're very worried about the potential fundamental rights violations that are going to take place and that have already taken place, because the Hyderabad police is um, overreaching from its mandate.
Well, what can a civilian who's been stopped by the police and being asked to hand over their phone do? The power differential between a policeman and an average person, particularly in India, is such that one wouldn't even think of resisting or asking the cop under what law he has the right to make such a demand.
Everybody of us wants to avoid any kind of interaction with the police because we're worried about any mishappenings that would take place out of it. So in such a situation, most people would end up uh, cooperating with the police because they would not want any action against them taken by the police. We know how prevalent police brutality is in India, and it is a very logical step then to try to cooperate as much as possible to ensure that you don't end up in a bad situation.
Right.
Also, here it's important to understand that most people don't even know that the police does not have any right to do this, as there's no awareness with regards to privacy rights or rights in general in the country. People don't know that the police cannot do this. People also, some people might also think that because the police is asking them for their phones, they are actually legally obliged to do this. So there is also a lot of um, misinformation with regard to what the police can and cannot do. So, what we need actually here is a law which would respond to such developments in technology, um, because technology has become so prevalent and so everyday in our lives. It is important that laws also take into account how these technologies are interacting with our lives and how these technologies may affect how the police is conducting investigations.
Right. Let's turn our attention to CCTV networks and the use of facial recognition technology in and by law enforcement. Can you explain to our listeners why the nature and scope of the use of CCTV networks and facial recognition technology in Hyderabad is particularly concerning? Also, why the argument that if you're willing to share your photos, videos, and location on apps like Instagram and Facebook, and you have nothing to hide, why should the use of facial recognition technology by the police really bother you? Argument is wrong.
Definitely. CCTV surveillance, such as the one that is happening in Hyderabad, is problematic because there is no data protection law in place, or any standard operating procedure in place with regard to how the footage that is being recorded and collected through the CCTVs is supposed to be used, processed, shared, stored, and deleted. So we don't know what the police or any other third party with which they might share this footage may end up doing. So that would definitely amount to a breach of privacy, and it would also amount to other rights violations.
Okay.
Other rights violations will also occur when facial recognition technology is used through these CCTVs, because the use of facial recognition technology amounts to mass surveillance. And this is because facial recognition technology is such that it would allow the police to identify where a person is going, what they're doing, and then keep a track of their movements as well as their other um, activities, because it is essential to remember that all these databases, in the absence of a data protection law, can be connected. And what can happen is there's a 360-degree profile of a person can be created.
Okay.
In such a situation where a person is going to a protest, or is not even going to a protest but is in the area where a protest is happening, and the police has, through the CCTV footage, used facial recognition technology on everybody who's there. In such a situation, given that by their very nature's, protests are generally against government actions, the government could end up taking negative steps towards everybody who was at the protest.
Hmm.
This is problematic because this would then lead to a violation of the fundamental right to protest under the constitution. So that is why the use of CCTVs and the use of facial recognition technology is so concerning, because there is no law in place which would regulate how these technologies are going to be used. It's also important to remember here that facial recognition technology, while it will definitely lead to mass surveillance and violation of civil rights, is also inaccurate. Inaccurate in the sense that it is a known fact, and this has already happened in other jurisdictions, wherein facial recognition technology has misidentified people, which has led to wrongful arrest being made.
Okay.
Person who has been arrested for a crime has been arrested by mistake, because through the facial recognition technology the police thought that that person was actually the person who had committed the crime, but it was not the case. So that has also happened. With regard to your second question, when we share our photos or videos or locations with apps like Instagram and Facebook, we sign a privacy policy.
Right.
In that privacy policy, they, Instagram or Facebook or whatever, they lay down that this is how we're going to use your data, and this is what we're allowed to do.
Right.
I agree that these apps are problematic and that these apps are misusing data. It does not mean that just because Instagram and Facebook are misusing your data, you should be okay with the government also collecting your data and misusing it, obviously without consent.
Right. And also, this is false equivalence, right? A Facebook or an Instagram wield nowhere as much power as a government does over our lives. Also, the violation of privacy fears aren't only to do with data security. That is a narrow view, right? Sorry to interject, Anushka. Please continue.
With regard to the nothing to hide argument, I think that is a very problematic argument, because it's always said that people who have nothing to hide or who have not committed a crime should not ask for privacy, because the stereotype is that somebody who's committed a crime, somebody who has something to hide, is the only person who needs privacy. This is wrong, and this is very problematic, because you have to understand that privacy is not just for criminals, but it's also for people who do not feel safe because of their identities. It can be a religious identity, it can be a sexual identity, and these people need their privacy so that they can hold and express their opinions and their individuality without the fear of backlash. If two people who are in a gay relationship have not come out to their parents or to their families fearing backlash, they need privacy in order to ensure that they can continue to be in that relationship without worrying about the fact that their relationship may come out into the public because of a lack of privacy, and then they could be targeted not just by their families but but the entire society, and by people who specifically target people who belong to the LGBTQ community. This is an example that I'm giving.
Okay.
So it's important to understand that privacy is not just for um, people who commit crimes. It's to ensure that your views and your opinions, you're allowed to hold them and express them without worrying about the possible ramifications of what might happen if somebody who does not agree with you decides to target you.
Right. Advocates of mass surveillance say that this is a trade off that is worth the safety CCTV networks and facial recognition technology provides. We've heard police force after police force talk of closed circuit television cameras as a sort of panacea of all ills, particularly with reference to women's safety. They say this will be a deterrent against street harassment, sexual assault, and will provide evidence that could help in tracking down perps.
There is no data which actually supports these claims, but there is data which disproves these claims. So, here, firstly, talking about CCTV cameras, there are multiple studies which have shown that CCTV cameras have not led to a reduction in crime, or specifically crime against women. Crime against women, at least speaking specifically about what has happened in Delhi, uh, in the last decade, what we have seen is crime against women in Delhi has gone up. Specifically since 2019, the Delhi CM has introduced his CCTV initiative, wherein they have deployed a massive amount of CCTVs in the national capital. But even then, crime against women has not gone down. Uh, In contrast, it has actually gone up.
Okay.
If you compare the numbers released by the Delhi police of crime against women in comparison to the first 8 months of 2020 and the first 8 months of 2021, crime against women went up in 2021, even though the number of CCTV cameras deployed was higher.
Right.
With regard to facial recognition as well, um, has facial recognition actually led to a reduction in crime? We don't know that. But there are multiple studies which have shown that facial recognition is inaccurate, facial recognition is discriminatory, and facial recognition basically does not work. Here, it's also important to remember that while the deployment of CCTVs is happening at a massive scale and a lot of money is being poured into it, how much of this CCTV surveillance feed is actually, are they actually able to oversee every day?
Right.
According to the Comptroller and Auditor General's report on the Delhi Police, that I think it was for the year of 2019 or 2020, um, they have said that almost 24 to 48% of the CCTV cameras deployed by the Delhi police are working. Only 24 to 48%. And other than that, they are not working, or there is a faulty network issue, and they're not able to access the surveillance feeds.
Okay.
So in this situation, when they're not even able to
Okay.
access and look at the surveillance feeds that are existing, then what is the point of pouring more money into it, where they've not even been able to show that pouring money into it has led to a reduction in crime?
Hmm.
People assume that surveillance will lead to safety. Surveillance has not led to safety. It has, on the other hand, led to massive violations of the right to privacy.
Right. And it isn't only the police that will have access to footage from these CCTVs. In Delhi, it appears the Resident Welfare Association, RWAs, can also log in and access the feed. And one can only imagine the potential for misuse.
Yes, that exactly. So here again, the lack of legislation and the lack of regulation comes into play. There is no regulation which talks about, on a country level, how CCTV cameras are to be deployed and how the data collected has to be used.
Okay.
The Delhi government has an SOP in place which says that RWAs and other multiple other stakeholders can go to the member of parliament of that area, and they can then access the CCTV feeds. There is no information about when, in what situation will they gain this access, what are the reasons for which they can gain access, what is the duration for which they can gain access, what will happen after the purpose for which they have gained access is over.
Okay.
So, in such a situation, there is obviously a very real possibility that these groups will overstep and will over police residents. And this will specifically happen to women, because historically women have been over surveilled and over policed in India. We live in a patriarchal society wherein women are not given the freedom to live as they want. RWAs have also historically targeted single women that live in rented houses, and they have been asked to leave their houses, or asked to not allow boys or any other friends into their houses, which is illegal. You can't ask them to do that, because there's no law saying that they can't do that.
Hmm.
And such CCTV feeds which can be accessed by these RWAs will definitely act as a contributing factor in the over policing and the illegal surveillance of women in India specifically.
Correct. Now, Indian cities aren't the first to use facial recognition technology and other sort of mass surveillance measures. What has the experience been in other democracies, like the United States?
So in the US is where this technology first developed, and in the US is where civil society organizations also first then showed how problematic these technologies are.
Okay.
There is a study by MIT technologists which shows that facial recognition is discriminatory because it identifies white faces with a higher accuracy rate than black faces. And it is also discriminatory on the basis of gender because it identifies male faces on a higher accuracy rate than female faces. So a white male would have a very high probability of accurately being identified, and a black female would have the lowest probability of being accurately identified.
Okay.
In a situation where um, the police is using facial recognition and they get 5 matches, and they're looking for a black female, and all of these matches are in the range of 70, 65, 60, 50. These are very low accuracy rates, especially when it comes to criminal investigation. But the person who is operating this technology, because at the end of the day it will be a person who will be making the choice of whether the person that they're looking for is the person that facial recognition technology is showing to you. That person will then choose the highest probability match, even though that match is 70%, which is very low. In a situation where a criminal investigation is taking place, a 70% accuracy rate should not be acceptable.
Hmm.
But that is how this technology works. And this inaccuracy issue comes because the bias that is there is in the data sets on which this technology is developed. So the facial recognition algorithm works and develops by gaining access to data sets. Now these data sets are themselves biased because they have more examples or more data points with regard to white people and men than compared to black people or female. So because the bias is in the data sets themselves, this bias will then project onto the algorithm. So assuming that any technology is accurate because it is a technology is the first and foremost mistake that you're making in this situation.
Okay. And you may think Hyderabad is an aberration, but well, the use of facial recognition and similar AI technologies is being adopted by agencies across the country. Remember, we don't yet have a personal data protection law in place. In this vacuum, in the absence of any legislation or any regulation, it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that the unchecked use of such measures could well make us an Orwellian surveillance state. Anushka Jain, I want to thank you for your time and your insight.
Thank you for having me.
That's it for the moment. Thanks so much to our listeners. I'll be back next Friday.